There was once a woman who sat in the cold, dim corner of a tiny Edinburgh cafe, her fingers trembling slightly over the keys of a battered old typewriter. She had no job, no money, a baby sleeping beside her in a pram, and a broken heart. That woman was Joanne Rowling, better known today as J.K. Rowling, the creator of the magical world of Harry Potter, a universe that would go on to change the lives of millions across the globe. But long before the magic, there was pain, there was failure, there was darkness. Joanne was born in 1965 in Yate, Gloucestershire, England. From a young age, she was a dreamer. She wrote her first story, A Tale About a Rabbit, when she was just 6 years old. She would fill notebooks with magical worlds, tales of good and evil, stories filled with fantasy and imagination. Books were her escape. But life wasn't always kind. Her relationship with her father grew strained as she got older. And while her mother was loving, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when Joanne was just a teenager. It was a slow, painful decline that lasted for years. Joanne went on to study French at the University of Exeter. After graduation, she moved to London to work as a researcher and bilingual secretary for Amnesty International. But the dream of writing still burned quietly within her. Then one day, during a delayed train journey from Manchester to London in 1990, the idea of Harry Potter appeared in her mind, fully formed, a boy wizard, unaware of his magical heritage. She didn't have a pen at the time, and she was too shy to ask anyone for one. So she sat in silence and let the characters form in her head. But just a few weeks later, tragedy struck. Her mother died after a long struggle with MS. Joanne was devastated. Her mother had never gotten to read a single word of the Harry Potter manuscript. That grief bled into her writing. It's why Harry's longing for his parents feels so raw and real. Seeking escape, she moved to Portugal to teach English. There, she met a journalist, fell in love, and married. It seemed like a new chapter, but the marriage quickly crumbled. In 1993, Joanne fled her abusive marriage and returned to the UK with her infant daughter, Jessica, in her arms. She was a single mother, penniless, and emotionally wrecked. She moved to Edinburgh, Scotland, where she lived in a small, sparse flat. She battled severe depression, so intense that she contemplated suicide. She has spoken openly about this time, saying she felt like the biggest failure I knew. She would walk Jessica to sleep in her stroller and then duck into a cafe to write. She was surviving on welfare benefits, and the heating in her flat was often turned off to save money. She was cold, hungry, alone, and yet she kept writing. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Philosopher's Stone in the UK, was slowly being born, page by page, in the shadows of despair. Once the manuscript was finished, she began sending it to publishers. She was rejected by 12 major publishers. One told her to get a day job. Another said fantasy wasn't marketable. Still others didn't even respond. It would have been easy, so easy to give up. She had every reason to. A single mom, no money, mental health battles, a long string of no S, but she clung to her dream with quiet, stubborn determination. Finally, in 1996, a small publishing house called Bloomsbury agreed to publish her book. The chairman gave the first chapter to his 8-year-old daughter, who devoured it and demanded more. That little girl's excitement changed everything. They offered Rowling a £1,500 advance. It was modest, but it was a beginning. The first book was published in 1997. Only 1,000 copies were printed. No one imagined the storm that was coming. But word spread. Children fell in love with Harry, Hermione, and Ron. Parents started reading the books too. Then teachers. Then entire schools. With the second book, Chamber of Secrets, the Harry Potter phenomenon took off like a broomstick in flight. By the time the fourth book came out, it sold 372,000 copies in the UK on the first day alone. The final book, Deathly Hallows, sold 11 million copies in its first 24 hours. The books were translated into over 80 languages, sold in more than 200 countries, and turned into a billion-dollar movie franchise. Joanne became J.K. Rowling, one of the most famous authors in the world. At her peak, J.K. Rowling became the first author in history to become a billionaire from book sales alone, but she never hoarded her wealth. Rowling donated hundreds of millions of dollars to charity, including her own foundation, Lumos, which helps disadvantaged children around the world. She also gave generously to multiple sclerosis research in honor of her mother. She dropped off Forbes' billionaire list in 2012 because she had given away so much money. She once said, "You have a moral responsibility when you've been given far more than you need to do wise things with it and give intelligently." The impact of J.K. Rowling's work goes beyond sales, awards, and money. For many children and adults, Harry Potter was the first book they ever loved. It taught them about courage, friendship, loyalty, and love. It gave countless young people the courage to believe in themselves, to stand up for what is right, to see magic in ordinary. Her books created a global community, a world where outcasts became heroes and love always triumphed. Despite facing criticism later in her career, Rowling has stood firm in her convictions, continued her philanthropy, and kept writing not for fame, but for the love of stories. J.K. Rowling's story is not just about a woman who became rich. It's about resilience, about failing and rising, about having nothing, and creating something that changed the world. She once said, "Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life." And that's the legacy she leaves us with. Her story reminds us that the darkest moments do not define us. They shape us, they test us, and they prepare us for greatness. A final word. So next time you feel like giving up, when the rejections pile up, when the world seems cold and your dreams feel silly, remember the woman in the cafe, with a baby beside her and a story in her soul. She changed the world, and so can you. If this story moved you, if J.K. Rowling's journey from despair to destiny reminded you that no matter how dark it gets, there's always light waiting on the other side, don't keep this hope to yourself. Like this video if her story inspired you. Comment below with your favorite moment, or share your own journey. You never know who it might encourage. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful, emotional, and real-life stories like this. And most importantly, share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that failure is not the end. It's the beginning. Together, we make hope alive.